How's it going, guys and girls? My name is Callum X, and we're going to very quickly today look at how you can avoid injuries on Football Manager 2024, because as we all know, injuries are quite the problem. So first things first, let's start in pre-season training, where it's important to give your team the best foundation you can in terms of fitness to last throughout the year without getting as many injuries as possible. So I include a lot of resistance training and endurance, which improves their strength, their natural fitness, their work rate, as well as some recovery in there as well to make sure that we're not overstressing them. Don't forget, they've just had a whole month of holiday. They're all hungover and whatnot from wherever they've been. This is entirely up to you, but I also like to make sure that I only do preseason friendlies on Saturdays. This means that during the week we can really concentrate on the training, and I do make sure that I've got some match reviews in there and tactics, as well as overall team training to improve their tactical familiarity, etc. You can see at the top of the screen is actually the injury risk is very low in this particular training thing, and of course I'll leave a link underneath. It's also on the Steam Workshop if you go and look for me, Mr. Callum X, over on Steam. I've uploaded it onto there as well. So the second point is also down to training, and this one's over on the rest tab. Now, during the season, especially in lower league teams where perhaps that you haven't got as many staff, physios, sports scientists, etc., your facilities aren't quite as good, you haven't got a club doctor maybe, then I like to drop the training intensity down a notch once the season begins. So during the preseason, I'll have double intensity at the top, normal intensity, half, no pitch or gym work, no pitch or gym work. However, once we get into the season and everything sort of starts going, I will drop this maximum down to normal intensity. Again, if you've got really good staff and you've got very naturally fit players, maybe you don't have to do this. However, this is something that I've found helps. Thirdly is to include rest days and recovery days in your training schedule. Now, I know this sounds very logical, but you'd be surprised how many people don't, including myself. At the beginning, you're thinking, you want to be training as much as possible. But once you're actually playing during the season, you do want to be making sure that you're resting your players. So as you can see here, this is just an example of one of our weeks of training where, again, everything is relatively simple in terms of which training routines I've included. However, there is a lot of recovery in there, a little bit of endurance to help keep their natural fitness up. And of course, after a match, we have the recovery and a match review. So super important. Make sure you include rest and recovery for your players. Next up, very simple, very quick. Don't sign injury-prone players. I know that sounds really simple and silly, and sometimes you just have to sign that player who's injury prone, and you have to be a bit more careful with his training, perhaps lower the intensity. However, if you don't sign injury prone players, you'll have less injuries. Moving on, make sure you drop your match intensity if you're winning. If you're 3-0 up in a match and you're pretty much sure you're going to win, drop the match intensity down to preserve your players' condition, keep their fitness higher for the following match, as well as reduce their risk of injury. The way that I personally do this is I've got 3 tactics saved in my tactics planner, and one of them is my main tactic. This is the higher intensity one, even though it's not actually that high intensity in this particular save. Then on my second one, I have a slightly lower intensity version of a tactic. And then in the third one, I've literally got to park the bus. Like, you don't need to park the bus, but I do. That way, the team can constantly train those tactics, so they're always learning them. So when I do go, oh, okay, yeah, calm the intensity down, they already know what they're doing because they've learned it in training. If you don't know how to do that, let's quickly go through and show you. If you go to training, at the top of the screen, you'll see it says primary trained tactic and other tactics. I've currently training my main tactic because I changed it slightly recently. However, what you can do is once your team are fully familiar with this tactic, switch it to the other one. Now we train in the second tactic. We're still going to keep training the tactic we're playing mainly in the matches, but our main focus of training is going to be to get familiar with, in this case, the counter-attacking one. Next up, make sure you rotate your squad. If your team are playing every single match for 90 minutes, they are going to be at high risk of injury. They will get injured. It's bad. So make sure that towards the end of a match, especially if you're winning, that you're subbing those important players off, give them a break, as well as making sure that if you're playing a cup game against a league team that's maybe 2 leagues below you, or you know you're definitely going to win that match, make sure you start the match with your second 11, or at least rest those high risk players. You can see in the view here, I use the SAS skin. You can see that you can see what their match load is: medium, 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 light, 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 light. If that match load is heavy, they are more likely to get injured. It's very simple. Last up is your staff. If you have a good fitness coach, if you have a good coaching team, if you have good physios and sports scientists, you are less likely to have players that develop injuries. And if you do have players that develop injuries, they will recover quicker from them. The physios will repair them like magic. So those are some tips on how to avoid injuries in Football Manager 24. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, giving a thumbs up and all that jazz. Hopefully I'll see you over on Twitch. If not, then good luck. And I hope your players don't get injured that much, because injuries suck and can't win if all your players are injured. Unless you're playing FIFA. They could play FIFA. Be a FIFA championship going on while the other rest of your players are playing real football. Something like that.